So this lesson is called Make Some Space for Me. And what we'll be doing is we'll be looking about how to use length, such as meters, millimeters, centimeters, meters, kilometers, and a thing called feet. You've seen feet before. You have heard of the concept of inches, and a foot is 12 inches. Okay? Now, we're going to determine how much surface or two-dimensional space a thing has, i.e., how much of something we need to do to build something. For example, we could look at the amount of wallpaper for a wall, or the amount of sheet metal that I could use to build the side of a car, things like that. Take a moment, copy this down, and we'll move on to the next page. What we're studying is this thing called area. And here's something that you learned a long time ago. The area of a rectangle, otherwise known as the formula for a rectangle, is something like this. So we have something like this, and we're going to call L the width, L the width, and this the length. If I have a rectangle that has a length and a width, we know how to calculate its perimeter. But when we're looking about the space that's on the inside of that thing, we're looking at an equation that looks like this. Area is equal to the length times the width. Do me a favor and copy that down. Now, just remember, okay, that the L represents the length in meters or centimeters, and W represents the width. Okay? It's just like what we studied before when we were doing our perimeter. One of the things that I want you to remember is the units. Okay, when we talked about units in perimeter, we always just added up all the length and then said, let's say all the perimeter was meters. We would add up all the stuff and say it was meters. But when we do something that is an area, the units are either, in this case, millimeters squared, or centimeters squared, or meters squared, or kilometers squared, or feet squared, or if we were doing inches, we would say inches squared. Those are the units that we'll be using for this. Now just pause this, copy this down, and then we'll move to the examples. And now let's move to the example. So just take a moment and copy this down, pause the video, and then we'll fill it in. All right, so when a rectangle is in meters, then the area is in meters squared. When a rectangle is in centimeters, the area is in centimeters squared. And those are some important concepts that we need to keep track of when we're doing our solutions, okay? We just need to remember that when we have our lengths for the side of our shapes, if we ever have them, it's always centimeters squared. So now, this is the last part's very important because you see this a lot in the working world when you're building, say, a house or something like that. So when a rectangle is in feet, basically the area units are in feet squared. And that's it. And that's our main concept for today. So now let's get on to the mathematics. So today what we'll be doing is we'll be calculating the area of rectangles. So let's go through that right now. So here is our rectangle. So let's say I have a rectangle that looks like this, and the top half, the width of a rectangle is 13 centimeters. And our length is 29 centimeters. Okay? Now, remember what our equation for the area was. The area was equal to the length times the width. And all we're going to do is we're going to substitute our numbers and our units together into our equation. So the area is length times width. So we use this part here. There is our width and there is our length. So let's substitute directly in. So now when we have length times width, our length is 29 centimeters. Then we're going to times that by 13 centimeters. And you'll notice how when we do this problem and we're showing all the work, we need to have all the units in our calculation. Just the number is nice, but you know what? It's better that you actually put the numbers in so that you remember that when you have 2 centimeters and you're multiplying them together, you get the result. So 29 times 13 on your calculator, boom, 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 ends up being 377. And you don't write centimeters, you write centimeters squared as your final answer. Now, here's the other thing. Some of you guys like to have a pattern. So, yes, it's important to have a pattern when you're punching the length and width in, but here's what I want you to remember. Write this down. Doesn't matter which number is the length and which number is the width. Guess what? In the real world, no, it doesn't matter. In the real world, we usually say the length is the larger number. Now, if you do that, then you're pretty good. You're fine to do all of this stuff. Now, here's my question for you. Why do you think it doesn't matter? So, in the real world, a lot of times we have stuff to do, and like I just told you, it doesn't really matter what is the length or what is the width. So here is the reason why that is. If I took 3 times 2, you get 6. So let's say I had done this. 2 times 3. What do you get? 6. The same number comes out whether you multiply the large number first or the middle number or the last number first. It just doesn't matter. And it's just a property of multiplication. So when we're multiplying, it doesn't matter which number comes first. You just take the two numbers, multiply them down. That's it. So now let's do our second example. Let's call it B. Our new rectangle is going to look like this. And I've got 22.5 feet as its length and 14 feet as its width. So now our area is equal to length times width, and then we substitute our numbers in. 22.5 times 14. Now, you look at that problem. Let me tell you what it's wrong. The reason why it's wrong is because I haven't put down my distances as my numbers. So you got to make sure you do that right away. 22.5 feet times 14 feet. Well, that's going to be equal to, punch that in, and you're going to get 315 feet squared. Now we could also write that as square feet. Okay, so we could say square feet or feet squared, right? When we are at the hardware store in downtown Bolton or Hamilton or Kitchener or even, Port Dover. Anytime we use this foot squared thing, we're talking about feet squared, and that is what they would refer to it in those hardware stores. Okay? So now what I want you to do is I want you to do the practice problems that I've provided for you, and then we'll do some slightly more complex problems where we use area to draw up a picture, and then we'll do more complex ones later.